Life has a way of testing people in the moments they least expect. Sometimes it comes in the form of silence, sometimes in the form of love, and sometimes in the heavy shadow of injustice. This is the story of Aarav, a man who left everything he knew in India to chase the promise of a better tomorrow in America, only to find himself caught in a nightmare that tested his hope, his heart, and his faith in humanity. Aarav was 28 when he boarded the plane. He wasn't rich, he wasn't powerful, but he carried dreams larger than the suitcase in his hand. In his hometown, he was known as quiet, disciplined, and endlessly kind. His mother, widowed early in life, had poured everything into raising him, her only child. She sold her jewelry, took on odd jobs, and saved every rupee just to see him through his studies. When Aarav finally secured an opportunity in America, a job offer that promised not only financial stability, but also dignity, his mother cried tears of joy. "This is your chance," she whispered at the airport, her hands trembling as she pressed a small thread of saffron beads into his palm. "No matter what happens, remember who you are." The flight was long, the air heavy with exhaustion and nervous excitement. Aarav rehearsed his answers in his head, clutched his documents, and imagined calling his mother from a bright American street with good news. But reality rarely unfolds the way we script it in our minds. When the plane landed and the passengers filed toward immigration, Aarav's chest tightened. The officer behind the counter looked at his papers, then at him, her eyes narrowing just slightly. She asked questions: where he would live, who would employ him, why he came. Aarav answered truthfully, politely, but the officer's expression did not soften. Instead, she made a call, and two uniformed men escorted him away from the line. His stomach dropped. In a sterile back room, under fluorescent lights that seemed to hum louder with each passing second, Aarav was questioned again. His visa had discrepancies, they said. Something about his paperwork didn't align. He tried to explain, tried to show them the offer letter, but the words seemed to bounce off walls that had already judged him guilty. Hours turned into a day, and before he understood what was happening, Aarav was shackled at the wrists and transported, not to the bright streets of his dreams, but to a cold detention center that smelled of disinfectant and despair. Prison was not what he had imagined America to be. Metal bars, thin mattresses, the echo of footsteps in endless hallways. Men from all over the world sat behind those walls, some silent, some angry, some broken. Aarav, with his soft accent and wide, bewildered eyes, became both invisible and exposed. Every night, he lay awake, wondering how a clerical error could transform his life into a cage. Letters to his mother were carefully worded. He didn't have the heart to tell her the truth. Instead, he wrote of delays, of waiting, of hope. He could not bear to shatter her with the word prison. Weeks blurred into months. Aarav's case crawled through a system designed to be slow. He was assigned public defenders who met him briefly, promised little, and disappeared. His hope dimmed, but he never let it die. Each morning, he would sit by the barred window, eyes searching for a sliver of sunlight. "I will not be forgotten," he whispered. And then, as fate would have it, someone noticed. Judge Eleanor Hayes was not the kind of woman who believed in coincidences. She had presided over countless cases, her name known for both fairness and fire. When she stumbled upon Aarav's file, buried among dozens of forgotten cases, it stopped her cold. Something about it felt wrong. The dates, the paperwork, the silence. Too many questions, too few answers. And most of all, the photograph of Aarav, a young man staring straight into the camera, his eyes carrying both fear and unbroken dignity. Eleanor wasn't required to visit. Judges rarely walked into detention centers for men without names. But something compelled her. Maybe it was the thought of her own son, who had once studied abroad. Maybe it was the tiredness of watching the system grind people down. Or maybe, just maybe, it was karma, steering her to where she was needed most. The day she walked into the detention center, whispers followed her. Guards stiffened, prisoners stared. Aarav didn't recognize her at first. She looked out of place among the gray walls. Dressed simply, carrying a notebook, her expression calm but sharp. She asked for him by name, and when they brought him forward, his heart raced. No lawyer had ever done this. No official had ever looked at him with eyes that suggested he was more than a case number. "Mr. Patel," she said gently, extending a hand across the table. "Tell me your story." For the first time in months, Aarav poured everything out. The job offer, the paperwork, the moment at immigration, the confusion that became captivity. Eleanor listened, her pen motionless. She didn't interrupt. When he finished, she leaned back, her jaw tight. "You should not be here," she said quietly. Her visits became frequent. She reviewed his case herself, digging through documents others had ignored. She filed motions, argued with officials, demanded hearings. Slowly, the system that had buried Aarav began to stir, dragged into the light by her persistence. And something unexpected happened. Beneath the layers of legal battles, beneath the exhaustion of fighting, Aarav and Eleanor began to see each other not as prisoner and judge, but as people. She saw his resilience, the way he carried hope even when hope seemed foolish. He saw her strength, her refusal to let him be forgotten. Their conversations stretched beyond the case, to books, to childhood, to faith, to the fragile beauty of second chances. Whispers grew. Guards muttered about the judge who cared too much. Prisoners whispered about the young man whose story had reached powerful ears. And somewhere between the lines of advocacy and compassion, something fragile bloomed. A connection neither of them had expected, but both silently cherished. Finally, after nearly a year, the day came. Aarav stood in court, his wrists free of shackles for the first time. Eleanor presided, her gavel steady in her hand. The prosecution faltered, their arguments flimsy under the weight of truth. And when she declared him free, the room seemed to exhale all at once. Aarav closed his eyes, tears spilling unchecked, as the world outside those gray walls finally opened again. But justice, as always, came with its twists. Freedom did not mean simplicity. He had no home, no job, no family nearby. The system had chewed months of his life, leaving scars no papers could erase. Yet, in the ashes of his struggle, something brighter stirred. Eleanor, bound by her role, could not cross lines in the courtroom. But outside, she found herself drawn back to him. She offered guidance, introductions, a hand when the world seemed too heavy. Aarav, in turn, offered gratitude, honesty, and a quiet affection that spoke louder than words. Their bond deepened slowly, quietly, in stolen moments that belonged only to them. A shared meal after hearings, a walk through a park where the leaves fell like whispers, conversations that stretched into laughter, into silence, into something unspoken but undeniable. Love, fragile and fierce, grew between them. Not the kind born of convenience, but of survival, of respect, of souls that recognized each other in the dark. And yet, the world around them wasn't kind. Whispers of scandal lingered. Critics muttered about impropriety. But they held firm, not reckless but steady, because some stories, no matter how unlikely, are meant to be written. In the end, Aarav's journey was more than survival. It was proof that even in the coldest systems, humanity could bloom. It was proof that justice, though slow, could bend toward truth. And it was proof that love, unexpected, uninvited, could find its way even through prison bars. But here's where the story leaves us hanging. Months after Aarav's release, an envelope arrived at his small apartment. No return address. Inside was a photocopy of his original visa application, with a handwritten note at the bottom. "You were never meant to make it through." The handwriting was neat, precise, and it raised a chilling question. Had his detention been a mistake? Or had someone wanted him trapped all along? The mystery lingers, and the answers may never come. But Aarav's life, his freedom, his love, all stand as defiance against the shadows that tried to silence him. So I'll leave you with this. Do you believe Aarav's imprisonment was an accident of bureaucracy? Or was there someone somewhere who tried to erase him before he ever had the chance to begin? Let me know what you think in the comments below.